And we're waiting for the master musician to arrive at the studio. Meanwhile, the cats think that everything's okay. But we're here in the studio ready to do another Music Makers. Hello, I'm Fitz Randolph, and welcome to the Music Makers, a show where we talk to musicians and people involved in music from the Atlanta area. And today we're fortunate to have Jim Gibson, Atlanta's finest working musicians. So we're going to meet Jim Gibson today, and as he trips over the keyboard, we're going to ask him a few questions. Let's find out, where do you come from?
Grew up in Columbus, Georgia, Fitz. Columbus, Georgia. A long time ago. Was not at that point exactly a hotbed of the kind of music that I ended up doing. I grew up in a family where music was really important. My mother's a piano teacher. If you grew up in my family, you played the piano. You played the piano. You played the scales.
Yeah.
My sister ended up being really a serious pianist. I was not very serious about it, but you did it. Probably till I was 6 or 7 years old, I thought every kid had to practice the piano before supper.
What age were you when you actually started lessons?
I don't think it's possible to remember. I think we just 3, 4, somewhere. My mother, the piano's there. She's teaching piano. So you just kind of, she had students, and we just did it as I grew up.
Did she give you formal lessons?
She gave me formal lessons. I don't know that I was ever very serious about it. Certainly as time went on, I was really not serious about it,
Yeah.
to the point where I kind of quit.
You had to rebel, of course.
I had to rebel. You know. Well, when I got to high school, I'd kind of outgrown my mother's teaching level, because she was really for smaller kids, and so they said, we're getting you a teacher. So I went to this guy, and he wanted me to practice. He gave me hard stuff. That
like
was
classical?
This is all classical.
Classical music.
And I was in high school. There were a lot of things to do. I was not really interested in sitting down and working out dotted quarter notes. I never was interested in that, so I just kind of quit practicing. And my parents said, well, if you're not going to practice, we're not going to pay for it, which made sense to them and made sense to me too. And so I just kind of faded out, and that was the end of my piano lessons.
Well, so you were in, was this high school, early high
school? And I played, at that point I was
orchestra.
At that point I was playing like Rhapsody in Blue.
Yeah.
But that's about as far as I got, and I don't even know all of that anymore.
So was there an orchestra you were involved in?
I was in a high school band.
In a band?
We had an iconic band director, Bob Barr, who was very well known. In fact, there was a Reader's Digest article about Bob Barr. And so I joined the band. I went to that high school to be in the band. And the reason I went was really because before I got there, the band had gone to Europe, the band had gone to Chicago, the band had gone to New York, and I thought, here's a chance to just kind of get out of Columbus, Georgia, and see the world. Well, once I got there, we never went anywhere. We went to we went to Americus for the football games, Americus, Georgia, to the football games, and that was about it.
And you were on keyboard then?
No.
Well,
it was kind of embarrassing. Later, I played the flute.
Did you?
The reason I played the flute was because the only kid I knew who played anything was a girl, a friend, and she played the flute, and I thought it was a pretty cool instrument. And I did not realize that only girls played the flute at that point. So that was a mistake.
That's too bad.
And but it was fun. In the marching band, I played the glockenspiel.
I wondered,
and it was a great experience.
So high school, you kept active in music.
Kept active in music, and I think I was beginning to be aware of jazz. But in Columbus, Georgia, there was no jazz radio station. This is a different era. It's the time you and I grew up. This is the late 50s, early 60s. And in that town, there probably was jazz going on the African-American side of town, but at that time in Georgia, there was no crossing over back and forth. So I didn't know anything about that. We did church music. We were Baptist. We went to the church every time the door was open. And we did classical music. And of course the radio was there and stuff, and so I'm aware of the Everly Brothers and the early Elvis and some of those things that were coming along. But I wasn't particularly trying to do it. I was never in a garage band like so many guys were.
you weren't driven to start your own little
No,
band.
no, and nobody was really doing
Doing-
that very much then, or if they were, I didn't know them.
Right.
And there were not keyboards then.
It was a piano.
There was a
or-
piano or nothing.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, that's all. So I went off to college, and my plan was to be a lawyer. Because I
Really?
knew a lot of smart guys who were lawyers, and they seemed to be
Uh-huh.
really successful. So
Yeah.
I got to college, I met a few guys in law school, and I thought, this would be a disaster, because it's all details.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
tons of details, that's not me. So I faded on that,
Hmm.
which was a good decision. Ended up being an English major.
Okay.
Never took music.
Never took music.
Never took music. Never took a music appreciation course. Never did
Hmm.
anything formal there.
So, when you were playing this music, were you just playing when you had to play with the
No,
band, or were you
I
doing
was
anything
enjoying
extracurricular?
playing, and when I got to college, I really enjoyed it. And by that time, I had found out what jazz was. The way I found out was, you'll remember the Columbia Record Club.
Oh, yes. Oh, I do.
I got an album by mistake. It was a Ramsey Lewis album that I didn't order; it just came.
Yeah.
It was called Down to Earth. It was an iconic album. Just a
I have the
great
album.
album.
Yeah,
a
I have
great
the
album.
album. Yeah.
So I played it, and I just opened my ears and my head. I thought, this guy, how does he
Yeah.
do this? It was the most swinging, the most happy, the most, not complicated, just having fun with the groove.
Yeah.
And so I started ordering Ramsey Lewis records.
Mm-hmm.
Then I started trying to play that way. And so by the time I got to college, I was going over to the music building and, trying to teach myself how to play jazz
Yeah.
from the stuff I'd listened to. You didn't go buy music, you listened to the records, and
Right.
you went over and tried to copy them.
Now, I'm going to ask Jim to give us some demonstrations of where he was then. We're going to take a little break, and we'll be right back. And we're back. And we've got Jim in college now, and he's not in any formal music training, or really he's not in any organized.
But you know what I
musical
did?
group.
I would go over to the music house. It was an old house across the street. And I would just play. I was learning how to play Errol Garner. I was learning how to just copy. That's what
I want to get to that.
That's what I did.
your
I
jazz
bought
thing.
these albums, and that's the
Finish
way I
that.
learned.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm over there, I'm trying to play, and I'm learning how to play. Misty was a big one back then. I'm just over in music school doing that. About my second year in college, I got a phone. We were hanging out in music school, and the drummer would come over, a guy named Steve Chanin, who lived in Macon. He was a good drummer, very good drummer. He'd come over, bring his stuff, and a bass player would show up. Sometimes it was even a guy with a broomstick, honestly, and a
Okay.
spring on
A
the
wash
top,
tub.
a wash tub.
A wash tub.
Yep, and that's, music was a real bass. And
Yeah.
we would learn, I was learning how to play. They already knew.
You just started jamming.
Started jamming. So one day I got a call in the dorm from a guy named Ralph Brown. And Ralph was an adult then, I was a college kid.
Yeah.
He had a band in a little restaurant called the Pine Brook Inn, Friday and Saturday nights.
In Columbus? No, you
This
were
is in Macon. This is
You're in
Macon,
Macon, okay.
college. And he said, our piano player's sick. I don't know any other piano players. Steve Chanin, the drummer, tells me that you can play. Would you like to come play this job? Well, I'd never played a job. I didn't know. So I said, sure. I knew nothing, man. It's
You have
just-
a bunch of songs memorized?
I knew the songs that I'd learned from records that I owned.
Like
And-
pop music?
No, this is
or-
all jazz. A big one for me was, for example, Errol Garner's Concert by the Sea. Remember that?
Oh,
album?
yeah, yeah.
So I knew all those things. I think Where, When was on there. Some of those old
Yeah.
standard songs. I knew that, and Ralph had some music. And
What was the band who was in the
Ralph was a tenor player, very good player.
How many pieces?
Four pieces, quartet. This is the golden age. So it's a bass, piano, regular piano, real piano, sax and drums. And we played for dinner music, and then people were trying to learn. I'm trying to keep up with what these guys are doing. We're doing things like "Don't Blame Me." I remember that was a big one.
Yeah. Now,
Or
was
we
this,
did,
was this a mostly white audience, or was it a
Hello,
mix?
this is Macon, Georgia, in the late 1960s.
And
A
what
totally
was-
white audience.
All white
Yeah.
audience?
Oh, yeah.
No.
No.
Okay.
No.
They were. Was it a
The black folks
segregated-
worked there, but
Yeah.
yeah, everything was segregated.
Okay.
Yeah,
Of course.
there was no question. I mean, there was no question.
Yeah.
In fact, I got knocked out cold one night for going into a restaurant in Macon with some black musicians who were visiting the college. There was a little jazz club downtown in Macon called the Offbeat Club. It was a long, narrow, dark little nightclub right downtown. Dark. They left the Christmas decorations up all year. All year. It was just that kind of place.
Yeah.
Had a little bandstand with a B3 that was always there, and a great organ player. Great organ player, and so it'd be Steve Chain, my drummer friend, and this, I can't remember the organ player's name, but it was just a wonderful guy. Well, I didn't play organ, but I did play a little bit of flute. So I would go down there, and he would let me come play, you know, C-Jam Blues.
Yeah.
Or whatever I knew on the flute, you know.
So you were playing the flute.
I was playing the
and
flute,
he was
he's
on
playing the organ, you know. It was
Just the two of you.
It was just, you know, it was just
That sounds
cooking, man. It was just
fantastic.
like, I mean, this is his
I'm
part.
there right now. Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it's dark and it's muddy. Everybody's black in there except Steve, the drummer, and me. And it was great. They accepted us completely. They let us. We had a visiting group of the Paul Winter Sextet, I believe.
I remember Paul Winter.
Paul Winter. It
Yeah.
was before the Paul Winter consort. So they came to Mercer University, did a concert. I went up to them after the concert and I said, man, there's a great little jazz club downtown you guys would love. And they said, yeah, let's go. So we went, and his group was integrated. This is like probably 1966 in Macon, Georgia. So we went in there, we had a great night. It's maybe 2 a.m. They've been playing.
Everybody got up and played
Everybody got up
something.
and played. It was just one of those nights.
gotta
It was
love
just
that.
a terrific night.
Great.
So after we were, they want something to eat. There's one place in Macon that's open, right downtown near the train station, Spiller's Restaurant. I knew we shouldn't sit down because there were black guys and white guys. I knew that.
Together.
much.
You knew
I
that.
knew that. So, but I thought it'd be okay to order food and they could take it back to their hotel.
Yeah.
So we're standing at the counter waiting on our food, and I come to in my car with these guys from Chicago. They were from Chicago musicians, and they were driving around Macon. Me laid out in the back
And
seat.
you'd been hit. You
I had
didn't
been
know
knocked
it.
out. I had a knot on my cheek.
Well, we have to take a break in the story of Jim Gibson, but we're coming back with more of his interesting life as a musician and what he's accomplished and where he's headed. Yeah.
Almost got there.
Go, Jim, go. I'm Fitz Randolph, and this is The Music Makers. Thanks for watching, and remember, keep listening to music.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.